I want to talk. I wanted to talk about a little bit what's going on inside of the U.S. Israel relationship in the Middle East right now. Obviously, as we would be named the U.S. Israel Education Association, we have a very directed focus on that relationship. But within that context now, we are dealing with a region. We are dealing with a regional war. We're dealing with proxies that are being defeated, that have been standing and opposing Israel, stalking the region, and with Iran at the helm as the leader of that, Qatar also. In great support of Hamas. They act like the Muslim Brotherhood. So a lot is happening. We are watching a protracted war that goes on, seems like it's been endless, more than 600 days now. We have had hostages in tunnels inside of Gaza, that has kept this war going. It is the issue, the linchpin is to try to get the hostages out of Gaza and to bring a full and decisive end to Hamas's control over the Gaza Strip. At the same time, we're dealing with the Iranian threat, as you're watching that in the news, as the Trump administration is trying to commence and keep going negotiations with the Iranian regime to try to bring them to common sense that they cannot have enriched uranium. They cannot have a nuclear program. And so this has been quite a season. And as you saw our president go to the Middle East just a few weeks ago, these were at the top of the agenda. The Gaza war in Gaza, the seven-pronged war that Israel continues to be in, and also the Gulf states and their role in the Middle East, as we want to see a strong and positive nexus form called the Abraham Accords nations. We want more of those Gulf states and the regional moderate nations that are Arab to join the Abraham Accords. Obviously, what that does is it creates a strong fortress in a very, very difficult neighborhood, where we are able to kind of override and have a partnerships that lend themselves to treaties and opportunities for economy, for intelligence sharing, for defense, protection, and every other word we can think of. That's what the Abraham Accords serve to do. So President Trump is trying to enlarge that nexus. That was the kind of the big point of the trip, going over there to meet with these nations that are engaging the situation and to try and open up the economic spheres and possibilities. So I think what I'd like to say today, just we have got three major policy lanes that are highly relevant inside the dynamic today. And one of those is with the Abraham Accords nations. And as you have been on previous summaries like you are today, a briefing, our main focus right now within the Abraham Accords sector is definitely putting the opportunity for pharmaceutical development in the region. To date, there is not a staging ground for U.S. pharmaceutical development made of Abraham Accords potential nations joining these treaties. It becomes more and more realistic and more opportunity to think in terms of how we can friendshore our pharmaceutical development there as part of the America First strategy. Yes, bring back to the states what we can bring back to the states, but put in the region what we can put in the region in the way of generics and biosimilars, pharmaceutical ingredients that need to be produced. This opens up an incredible opportunity for the Abraham Accords nations to potentially, through the White House, the Development Financing Corporation, we've been asked back to the White House to discuss an international capital investment fund around pharmaceuticals. Well, this sort of broadens and adds expanse to the whole idea of setting up a staging ground over there. So that's in the future. We've got meetings forthcoming We had a meeting this week that was very significant around just that. But you can imagine what the attraction would be for Saudi Arabia, for the UAE and others to be able to invest into the pharmaceutical development with the United States. And so here we go on the building of the Abraham Accords. That's number one. Number two is that we have been involved in and we're working very closely with the U.S. administration, with the Israeli government on a post-war plan inside of Gaza. And what we're working on now is what is called AGES. That is the alternate Gazan education system. And what we are looking to do is to, as Israel defeats Hamas, as we watch the fall of Hamas, either a surrender or the complete collapse of Hamas, Israel is diligently in expanding this war in the Gaza Strip right now, which you've noticed, 15,000 more troops now injected into this war. The whole idea is to bring Hamas down. The idea is to get the Gazan Palestinians into safe zones, what they're calling safe zones, protected by the IDF, to create the humanitarian aid situations there, which they have already started, as you're watching through this American humanitarian aid organization that is now facilitating with the protection of the IDF. And as this grows and develops and you get more and more Gazans into the safe zones, Hamas is outside the safe zones, then you are able to think in terms of how can we stabilize the Gazan population? How can we stabilize the children and get them into schools so that they can begin to learn again and create normal environment? So that is the plan. We are working very closely on the education system, the de-radicalization content, the training of the teachers, and where that is going to go from here. I won't get into all of the details, but I believe that we're going to see 50 to 100,000 Gazans within safe zones within the next few months. We're going to watch a pilot program with schools probably by August or September, where there'll be 5 to 10 temporary schools that are arranged this fall inside the safe zones. And we're going to watch a process begin with the aim to increase that up to about 522 schools. So this is not going to be all of USIEA's work. We're bringing the right people together, the education contractors, the UAE leadership that needs to be involved in this as we go forward. In order for this to be successful and for us to pull it out of the hands of the UN going forward or any other nefarious entity, we have to act now. If there's a fall of Hamas, it means chaos. It means that any nefarious entity can come in and try to take over the education system all over again. We're not going to let that happen. The U.S. administration is not going to let it happen. The Israeli government's not going to let it happen. And we're bringing all those parties together. Lastly, as it concerns Judea and Samaria, as many of you know, that is a major policy lane for U.S. Israel Education Association. There are very few organizations on Capitol Hill that are actually doing the big work around that matter. And I think I've got some good news to report that in the course of us taking members of Congress to Hebron over the last decade, we have introduced them to Sheikh Ashraf Jabri. And he has been sort of a prominent leader over the business movement with Palestinians and Israelis. He has advocated for a strong Israel presence, for a one-state solution, to create the dynamic on the ground for the Palestinians to thrive and to succeed. Obviously, the Palestinian Authority has completely failed to capture the imagination of the Palestinian people, to lead them towards statehood. They have, from the very beginning, their origins have been set up to completely destroy Israel. Well, aren't able to exist to destroy Israel. That's never going to work. So we're watching the demise of the Palestinian Authority. What is happening now, and I think it's such a great report, is that you've got Palestinian clans now that have risen up and are meeting with the Israeli government For the very first time in history, this is happening. And what they are saying is we want to defect from the Palestinian Authority. We want to come up underneath the Abraham Accords, similar to the United Arab Emirates that have all their tribal groups inside of a nation, but they are underneath the Abraham Accords. And so there is a real possibility for us to see a dramatic shift sometime in the next year and a half, where we see a very drastic change inside Judea and Samaria. It would be a checkmate, as you might imagine, on the Palestinian Authority and its corruption. And secondly, it would be a checkmate on a Palestinian state, which is absolutely ridiculous. So we are very excited to see that inertia, that grassroots movement. We've been exposing Congress to this for 10 years. And it is unbelievable that we're arriving to that point where now you've got the willingness of clan leaders to take that step away from the Palestinian Authority. Well, these are some of the things that we've been working on. There is so much to say, but I've got the specialist here with us, Ari Sacher, and just so thankful, Ari, to have you on our team, of course. We've been at this together for almost 15 years. And Ari Sacher, for those of you who are new to this call, is the former chief engineer of Iron Dome. He is a major player with Raphael Industries. He is a creator, a designer. He is also brings together the collaboration between the U.S. and Israel through that Raphael Industries, and he works very mightily for U.S. Israel Education Association. Thanks, Ari.
Thanks a lot. It's good to be here speaking. Like Joe and Leslie said, I think I've met most of you. Look forward to firming up the relationship in the future. I have 2 topics that I want to talk about. The first topic on everybody's mind is Gaza. What's going on in Gaza? Is there an end in sight? And yada yada yada. Israel, as of March, has ramped up, like Heather said, our offensive in Gaza. There was a time that we were negotiating with Hamas. That's behind us. Indeed, the United States under Steve Witkoff has been trying to get the two sides together again. We agree to everything that Steve Witkoff is proposing, and Hamas has a couple of minor disagreements, such as when Steve Witkoff says that there should be a 6-week hiatus in the fighting. Hamas would rather see 7 years. Okay, 6 weeks, 7 years. It's very close. It's just enough time to rebuild Hamas. Therefore, Hamas has come out and said, no, we're not going to abide by what the United States says. And Israel says, well, that's fine with us. We'll release our hostages by destroying you. And so it is. Since March, Israel has been doing something that it did not do under the previous administration. Under the previous administration, Israel would enter areas, they would rid them of Hamas, wherever they were, and then they'd pull back. And as soon as they pulled back, nature, and Hamas being part of nature, abhors a vacuum, and they would re-enter that area which was cleaned out of Hamas. And so you had entries of the IDF, Israel Defense Forces, multiple times into areas that were supposedly clean. The reason that Israel could not capture these areas and remain in these areas was stiff opposition by the previous administration. This administration looks at things differently. It has given Israel a green light to go in, to capture, to remain, to flush out Hamas in ways that they will not be able to come back in. And one of my daily hobbies is to look at the map and you see the diffusion of the IDF into Gaza, and they're up to 45% of Gazan territory is now under IDF control. Well, it's one thing to slowly rid Gaza of Hamas, but there's another problem in Hamas, in Gaza, and that problem is the humanitarian crisis. Now, humanitarian aid has been sent into Gaza. It never really stopped. For about 6 weeks, it was reduced to a very low number in an attempt to flush out Hamas. But the problem was that whatever humanitarian aid was going into Gaza, that was being distributed by Hamas, the very people you were trying to defeat. And what they would do is they would use that humanitarian aid in order to get money. They would sell food to the highest bidder. They would prevent anyone else from distributing it. So they would use that humanitarian aid to further their rule over Gaza, something that had to stop, and this has stopped. Over the last 2 weeks, There is a new agency that is called the GHF, Gaza Humanitarian Fund, and this is being operated, administered by the United States and Israel. And it is being administered not by Hamas, it is bypassing Hamas. And now people are coming to the distribution centers. At first, it was disorderly. Now it is completely orderly. No matter what you would believe in the Washington Post, as an aside, the Washington Post and other news agencies out there asserted that Israel had opened fire on these people and it killed 26, 36, 72. Just an hour ago, the Washington Post, with their tail between their legs, retracted their statement, asserting that, well, we can't really prove this. So the first thing we need to do is to attack and besmirch the Israelis, and then if we're proven that we can't really prove it, then we'll retreat. And so they did. What the GHF is doing is it is removing Hamas from their position of power in Gaza. Hamas is panicking. They're panicking because food has always been part of its arsenal. They've used the aid as leverage. They diverted the aid, distributed the aid, and now they can't do this anymore. So they've lost simultaneously a tremendous source of income. They have also lost they've also lost the ability to administer Gaza, and they're panicking because the Hamas would rather see Gazans starve than to lose their control over Gaza. This is exactly what's happening. A couple of months ago, I wrote on my weekly blog on USIEA of an idea that was worth following up, and that was called I called segmentation, and that means that Israel would enter a small, well-defined area, clean it out of Gaza, and clean it out of Hamas, and anyone who is not Hamas would be allowed in. You'd have to be vetted, and then we would give administration of that area to people who were proven to be not Hamas. Lo and behold, this began to happen a couple of days ago. What has happened is a group of people led by a fellow named Abu Shabab, who is, well, you can call him a soldier of fortune, if you will. He is being apparently, from what I read on the news, working with the Israelis and the Americans to defend these, to provide security for this humanitarian aid distribution. They have been given the northern part of Rafah, and they're encouraging people to move back in. They will administer, and this is something that you can begin building things like Aegis if you have an area that is clean of Hamas. And this area is now clean of Hamas, and this area is now being rebuilt. Similar things are happening in certain areas in northern Gaza. This could not have happened had the IDF not had control, meaning that not only when the IDF was forbidden to retain control of Gaza by the previous administration, not only did that lead to unnecessary, horrific casualties among Israeli soldiers, what it also led to was an inability to administer Gaza unless it went through Hamas. All of a sudden, we have military control that enables us to have administrative control. The unfortunate that the people that are fighting right now in Gaza are from a certain part of the Israeli populace. There is a part of the Israeli population that is not fighting in Gaza. These are the right-wing Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox, we'd call them. In Hebrew, they're called Haredim. These are people that believe that it is more important to study the Torah than to fight for the country. And what they are doing is they are letting other people who study the Torah, such as myself, and my sons and my sons-in-law, one of which is serving 97 days in the middle of Samaria at this very moment, leaving his wife and 3 kids, including a 2-month-old baby at home. They're sitting there learning. And we learn too, but we're willing to give up learning in order to defend ourselves, in order to enable Israel to live another day. And they are also willing, the Haredim, for us to protect them. And I think that's really, really grand of them. There is, at this point in time, a law that is, the government has been attempting to pass this for a very long time. It would have mandatory military service for Haredim in the environment in which would behoove them. They would be allowed to have anything they needed for their religious beliefs. The Haredi parties in Israel in the coalition are in the process of leaving the coalition, which would potentially lead to new elections. They're touting a date now of mid-October, and it is my fervent hope that if the government does fall, then in the next government, the Haredim will not be allowed back in. How dare you? How dare you send my sons to fight for you? You're unwilling to do it yourself. The last thing I want to talk about very briefly is Golden Dome that President Trump is talking about, a Golden Dome that will defend America against its enemies. It's like taking Iron Dome and Israel's multi-layer missile defense system, Iron Dome, David Sling, Arrow 2 and 3, now being backed up by the U.S. THAAD, and which defends a very small area. This system Golden Dome would defend the entire United States of America, and clearly it's a different kettle of fish. As I wrote, Golden Dome is not a golden-plated Iron Dome. Golden Dome is a something completely different. I think it is very ambitious. I do not know if it is doable. What I do know is that the claim that it will be up and running by the end of the current administration is
Mhm.
ambitious. I might have said that before. Can Israel help in Golden Dome? Absolutely. Now, Israel's threats are not America's threats. Our threats are have a much shorter range, and the shorter the rocket flies, the easier it is to intercept. And we're also defending a much smaller sliver of land. The U.S. doesn't have that. The U.S. would have to send interceptors, killer satellites, call them brilliant pebbles, they were once called, into outer space, a whole cluster of these things orbiting the Earth, and they would when they would see a missile in outer space, they'd come and they'd hit it. This is something completely different. Israel has very little to offer, but Israel has a tremendous amount of what to offer when it comes to what we call fire control and situational awareness. Situational awareness, determining who's out there, who's a good guy, who's a bad guy, who do we need to shoot down, and interception control, fire control, and determining who shoots it down. These are problems that we have solved already in our systems. They are equally relevant in Golden Dome systems. And it is our hope that Israel and the United States will be able to feed off each other in this endeavor. Because Israel, while Israel has much to give in Golden Dome, Israel also has much to receive. Because when the United States of America puts their full weight into research on a certain episode, a certain area, then the whole world has what to gain. And what the USIA is going to be doing in the future is trying to get the right sides together in order to make sure that this is done as efficiently as possible and as beneficial as possible for both countries. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you so much, both Ari and Heather. That is just a tremendous update on both fronts. As y'all know, Bruce Pearl is supposed to be with us. He just texted me that he is running late from a meeting. He is actually in DC right now, meeting with senators, and then he has a meeting this afternoon with Ambassador Ataiba from the United Arab Emirates, and he is doing some work for USIEA in DC today. So he is running a little bit late. I'm hoping he'll still be able to hop on with us. But in the meantime, I'd like to go ahead and open it up for Q&A. If you guys have any questions for Heather, Ari, or myself, I would love to give you all this opportunity. Please don't be shy.
Hey, Joan Leslie, this is Stephen Brickman. How are you?
Hey, Stephen.
I was going to ask Ari or Heather what they perceive to be the outcome of the negotiations with Iran. You know, they say no nuclear weapons, but continuation of enrichment. And we say, presumably, no weapons and no enrichment. So where do we go and where do we end up?
Ari, you go, and then
All right. Well, it's really quite simple. The Iranians have such advanced enrichment capabilities that if you allow them to enrich to the bare minimum, which is 3%, which is what is needed for civilian uses, they can take that in a matter of weeks to weapons grade. So even if we allow them the smallest epsilon of enrichment capabilities, that is tantamount to having a nuclear weapon. Iran cannot be allowed to have any enrichment capabilities whatsoever. And President Trump has made this extremely clear over the last couple of days.
Mm-hmm. I would only add to that, Stephen, and for all of you that are watching this, that, when you think in terms of a military strike on Iran, which this may lead to. I think it's kind of black and white. Either they're going to give up and dismantle their nuclear program, or they're going to face a military strike. That's what's happening. It's pretty black and white. It does not look like they are ready to dismantle or to make any concessions on their enrichment. So I think we're headed toward a military strike. But even beyond that, as we've learned from just the kind of the nuclear safety world, which is being led by Representative Brandon Williams and will be under the Trump administration, is that when it comes to enrichment and you're trying to get somebody to dismantle an enrichment program, every drop of enriched uranium has to come out of the country. So it's not going to be enough just to do a military strike to try to destroy the context and the setup of the nuclear warehouses and what they're doing there for their facilities and all of that. That's going to be the first step. The second step is, how do we get the enriched uranium out of the country under the supervision of the United States? So this is going to take a while. We are not in a short game here, it does not look like, unless, as President Trump is trying to do, get Iran to concede.
That's right. Thank you so much, Heather. And I actually see that Bruce just joined us. Hey, BP.
Hey, guys, how are you?
Hey, Bruce.
Can you see me okay?
We can. Looks like you are in the halls of Congress right now.
I am in the halls of Congress. Actually, I just got finished with Senator Tim Scott, and I don't mind telling my family on this call that, as you guys, some of you may know, I'm on a fact-finding mission about whether or not I'm going to try to run for Senate. And Senator Scott was incredibly kind to spend a little bit of time with me. I actually saw him 2 weeks ago when they just gave me a little bit of office space here 2 weeks ago to talk to him about Israel. And we spent 10 or 15 minutes, and he had a lot of great questions and didn't really have a tremendous understanding of what was going on right now. And the fact that I had been there last month representing USIEA was really valuable. He's on our side. He's 100% on our side.
That's excellent. Thank you so much. Well, we were just doing a quick Q&A, but I would love to pass it off to you if you have anything else that you'd like to update us on, Bruce. I know your time is valuable right now.
No, listen, just grateful to the people on this call. Many of the people on this call are my friends, and some are my friends and family. I think USIAA is making an incredible difference. I just know right here at home, Katie Britt is a champion and how we view the country and how we view our Jerusalem and what that all means to us as Christians and Jews. She is completely aligned. She had a biblical background. She understood her Bible, but Heather and USIEA, and through their education, was able to take her to a completely different level of understanding. And she is now active here as a leader in the Senate. And God knows they need some leadership when you got Bernie Sanders and Chuck Schumer and others that are doing some of the talking and not letting Israel finish what they've got to do. Guys, going over there this last time, I can tell you that the Israelis are fatigued with fighting.
Yes.
Their sons and daughters are dying. The average age of a dead Israeli soldier is 30. These are not kids. These are young family men and women that are fighting in a war that they did not start, but they must be allowed to finish, because this whole concept of living next door to people that want them dead and from the river to the sea has got to stop. And it really is, this lack of understanding is where this current wave of anti-Semitism is springing from. If I believed that 14,000 babies were going to die in Gaza, because that's the way the media were reporting it, or if I believe that, that the Jews stole all the land from the Palestinians and so on and so forth, if and unfortunately, whether it be the media or these people are believing it to the point that they're willing to take, have violence into their own hands. USIEA is on the right side of supporting the Abraham Accords and finding a way through peace and prosperity for everyone in the region. It's our greatest hope, and USIEA is leading in so many ways. I'm going to be with the UAE ambassador, Youssef Otaibe, this afternoon in a relationship that I've grown and developed through my work in sports with Athletes for Israel, but mostly USIEA. And we're going to, so we're on the right path there. The sovereignty of Judea and Samaria, an example of why that didn't work, and exchanging land for peace, the promise of land for peace. It's not working in Judea and Samaria as cities like Ramallah or parts of Hebron or Jericho or Jenin have become hotbeds for terrorism. You can't even recognize Bethlehem anymore. Christians are not safe to go to Bethlehem anymore like they used to be. Well, that's partly Israel's fault for not taking sovereignty over that land and ensuring that land would be a place where everybody can go and be able to celebrate their faith, Muslims, Christians, and Jews. And so Israel bears some responsibility and not claiming sovereignty 80 years ago after 1967 and so on and so forth. And so we're in the right lane there. And the last thing is Israel's defense. You guys have heard from Ari Sacher. And look, our country has got to rebuild our military. Israel has got to rebuild its military. Israel is on the front line of Western civilization, really fighting our enemy. They're fighting our enemy. And as long as they're fighting our enemy over there, we're safer here at home. So I think we are positioned in a really, really good place. And I think we are doing meaningful work. And I could tell you that as chairman, that I have been able to get into congressional doors. I spent 45 minutes with Ted Cruz. We talked partly about NIL, but we talked a lot about Israel. And being the chairman of USIEA and representing, that opened that door for me. So I just want to say thanks for what you're doing. You guys can call me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm the basketball coach at Auburn. I'm 100% the basketball coach at Auburn. I'm looking at this. Pray for me. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do yet, but I just thanks for letting me share with you guys.
We're with you, BP.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Bruce. Appreciate
Hope you all have had a great call. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
you. That's great. Wow. Again, another
Leslie, I'd like to say one thing really quick.
Sure.
One of the things that is more clear today than it ever has been, if there was ever clarity, and we've certainly been preaching this, down through decades now, the importance of Israel possessing the mountains of Judea and Samaria. I want to read what God said. God was so clear that once you come into the land and you rebuild your cities and you live in them, and once I begin to give you the favor in the region, you are to take possession of the heights of the land. That is the mountains of Judea and Samaria. Once you do that, Ezekiel the prophet said, you will no longer deprive your nation of its children. That's right. That right there is war will stop. Right now, people say of you, this is what Ezekiel said, people say of you, your reputation is that you devour people and that you deprive your nation of its children. But I say to you, when you possess these mountains, you will no longer devour people. You're no longer going to deprive your nation of its children or make them childless. You will no longer hear the taunt of the nations. You will no longer cause your nation to stumble or fall. And Judea and Samaria is to be your inheritance. You will know who you are when you own that land, and the land itself is tied to your understanding, your identity. This is very, very clear. And so I think our prayers going into the future is that Israel will rise with this courage, and at the appropriate time, they will apply the sovereignty to this area called Judea and Samaria. They will bring in their laws that are in Tel Aviv. They're going to put them over Judea and Samaria. I believe they're setting the context for those things right now. They're continuing to add to legalize the outposts. They're continuing to build roads out to these areas that they've never done before, and more money is going into Judea and Samaria today than it has in decades. So we're very, very excited to see this government moving on it in the middle of the war, but more is going to have to be done.
Great. Thank you, Heather. I'd like to open it up again to any questions anyone might have. I think I saw a couple of people raising their hands on the Zoom right before BP joined us, so I don't want to cut anyone short. Any questions before we wrap up? Okay, then we must have done an excellent job with the updates. Well, I want to thank you all so much for, again, just giving us your valuable time. As I mentioned, we will be hosting these briefing rooms on a quarterly basis, and we have a slate of experts that we're excited to bring to you over the course of the coming months. And the next time we have this call, we will have just completed a congressional tour to Israel in August, which Heather briefly touched on. But I did want to mention that again to all of you, that we will be taking a group of senior leaders in Congress to Israel the first week of August. And we would just appreciate your prayer over that week, as it is looking to be quite a historic and monumental week for us as an organization. And of course, that is always due to your prayers and your partnership. And so we're very thankful for each of you. And we look forward to being in touch and hosting this again in the coming months. So thank you, Heather, Ari, and BP, and thank you to everyone else for joining.
Good to see all of you.
Thank you all.